We're back here with another Mondays with the Mad Scientist with Quickblade's Jimmy Terrell. Jim, there's something you want to chat about today and get off your chest. What are we talking about today on Mondays with the Mad Scientist?
I think we're going to talk a little bit about drafting. There's a lot of controversy and a lot of talk about drafting. And what I've seen from races is drafting, in my opinion, adds a lot of value to the sport in general, for the spectators and for the athletes themselves. It makes the races tighter. It makes something to talk about between the guys, afterwards. But you're going to see a lot more and more races that are incorporating drafting. The guys that have developed in drafting, people think that drafting is like you can be, half as fast as somebody else and just sit on a guy's wash and follow along. But it's not the case. You have to have the skills and first of all be fast enough to keep up with somebody that you got to be close to their speed. But drafting is something that you have to learn. It's a skill, and I think that in the end, it's going to keep the races tighter. Otherwise, it's there goes a guy, there goes a guy, there goes another guy. But with drafting, it keeps the pack tight, and the pack will break down, and people fall off the draft and form new packs. But as more, the races where there's more and more contestants, you're going to see it, and I think it adds a lot of value from the spectator standpoint and sponsors and everything else. So I'm all for it. I can understand that there could be some controversy, people that maybe aren't fond of drafting, but it's happening, and I think it's widely accepted. If you look at the outrigger culture in open ocean racing, for example, drafting is not an advantage because you're using the energy of the swell in the ocean to get your runners, and you wouldn't be able to draft. It wouldn't be an advantage for you. But races where the water's a little bit flat, or like the Survivor race here in Waikiki, you had a lot of drafting going on, and it was conserving energy for the final, lap and all that kind of thing. But it's a good thing.
Absolutely, and one point you touched on was making it a little bit more exciting for the spectators, and I think that's one thing that stand-up paddling, with being such a young sport, hasn't really captured yet, is getting that more mainstream crowd enthusiasm happening. How do you think exactly that drafting would help in that regard?
Yeah. Well, I think that what SUP has going for itself in its favor is the visibility of the athletes. Versus canoeing and kayaking. Like in kayaking, only the upper body of the athletes is exposed. With stand-up, it's the whole body. And they had some really good footage at the Quicksilver Waikiki race where when you focus in with drafting, the pack is really tight. Everyone's close together, so it makes for a much better visual, like on television. And from that perspective, but I think that drafting just definitely adds a flair to our sport to make it exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, do you think it should be regulated? Should there be rules, or should it just be a free-for-all?
I think that there can be. The difficult thing with drafting is, like, if you're to not allow drafting, how do you enforce it? When there's a lot of people on the water and everybody takes off, you're going to end up getting, the water gets displaced, it creates waves. There's a way to benefit from that. How do you'd have to define what drafting is, how close can you be from the back, the side, however you do it. Or you could maybe have a rule where drafting is allowed up until the last lap of a race, where, you have jet skis on the water that, throw up a red flag saying, hey, he's drafting. You get a warning. If you don't get off within 5 strokes, you get DQ'd. But I think it would just make it really difficult for race organizers to control it, So I think it really just be allowed. There may become, like, if it's sprint racing, like in Olympic style canoeing and kayaking, for example, drafting is forbidden in sprints. But if you're in the center of your lane and your competitor to your right or left is in the center of their lane, and the wave comes along and you stay at the same speed, you can get a benefit of the draft. You just can't come within a meter of the buoy line, which is your lane line. That's the way they control that. So they have a launch that follows, a motorboat that follows the race from behind, and if somebody gets within a meter of their lane line and it looks like they're drafting, the official can throw up a red flag and you can be disqualified for drafting. So there may be a place in our sport in some venues and disciplines of SUP where drafting maybe could be considered illegal, and you could make a rule that would be easily enforced and make it illegal.
Absolutely. All right, well, that's some pretty good insight. Now, I know that it's a bit of a hot topic, the old drafting. There's a lot of people for it. There's also a lot of people against it. Say if there's anyone out there watching this and they're just fully against drafting, what's your summary to say this is why I think it's a good thing? Try and convince the guys out there and the girls out there that aren't big fans of it.
Well, I don't know that I want to be the one to convince anybody which way it should be. It's just my perspective. You know, I've been around marathon canoe racing, professional canoe racing, where drafting is a big part of the culture of canoe racing. I've been around Olympic sprint canoeing, where in the distance racing it was allowed, but in the sprint racing it wasn't allowed. And outrigger canoeing, you just don't see it happen because they're typically in the ocean and it's not an advantage. But with SUP, the boards are short, they displace water quickly, it comes together, creates a big wave behind, and it's very easy to sit your nose down in that hole and get sucked along if you know what you're doing, without saying too much. But yeah, I think I'm not necessarily trying to convince anybody one way or the other. I just, from my perspective and being around, I really think that in the end, for the athletes and the people that don't want, like if we want our sport to grow and have people come out and watch and have it continue to grow, you need spectators and people that are going to get excited about the sport. And when it's spectator friendly, I think that's really what is going to make it fun and for the athletes as well.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks a lot for that insight. That's really it's an interesting topic, and it'll be interesting to see where it is in a few years, what rules we have, what rules we don't have, and whether or not it becomes an accepted part of our sport. So thanks for chatting with us. Mondays with the Mad Scientist, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks again to Jim Terrell and Quickblade Paddles.
Thanks for having me.